Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Gopi Jana Balava Giri Bharadhare Gopi Jana Balava Giri Bharadhare Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachare Yamunatira Vanachare Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Gopi Jana Balava Giri Bharadhare Gopi Jana Balava Giri Bharadhare Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachare Yamunatira Vanachare Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Jai Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jai Vishnupad, Paramahans, Parivrajacharya, Srimad, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki, ISKCON's founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada Ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki, Shri Shri Radha Radhanath Ki, Shri Giri Govardhan Ki, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu Ki, Go Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 24, chanting the song sung by Lord Shiva, text 15. Is there, yeah? Yad Uktam Pate Drishtena Girishena Prasidata Tad Dhyayanto Japantash Cha Pujayantash Cha Samyata Yadoktam Patidrishtena Girishena Prasidata Tadjayanto Japantascha Pujayantascha Samyata Yadoktam Patidrishtena Girishena Prasidata Tadjayanto Japantascha Pujayantascha Samyata Yadoktam Patidrishtena Girishena Prasidata Tadjayanto Japantascha Pujayantascha Samyata. Mataji's. Matidrishtena Ishena Prasidata Jayanto Japantascha Pujayantascha Samyata Yaduktam Patidrishtena Bradishena Prasidata Chajiyanto Japantascha Pujayantascha Samyata Yat that Uktam said Pati on the way Drishtena while meeting Girishena by Lord Shiva Prasidata being very much satisfied Tat that Dhyayanta meditating Japantacha chanting also Pujayantacha worshipping also Samyata with great control. Translation: when all the sons of Prachinabarhi left home to execute austerities, they met Lord Shiva, who, out of great mercy, instructed them about the absolute truth. All the sons of Prachinabarhi meditated upon the instructions, chanting and worshipping them with great care and attention. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. It is clear that to perform austerities or penances, or for that matter, any form of devotional service, one has to be guided by a spiritual master. Here it is clearly stated that the 10 sons of Maharaj Prachinabarhi were favored by the appearance of Lord Shiva, who, out of great kindness, gave them instructions regarding the execution of austerities. Lord Shiva actually became the spiritual master of the 10 sons, and in turn, his disciples took his words so seriously that simply by meditating upon his instructions, dhyayanta, they became perfect. That is the secret of success. After being initiated and receiving the orders of the spiritual master, the disciple should unhesitatingly think about the instructions or orders of the spiritual master and should not allow himself to be disturbed by anything else. This is also the verdict of Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, who, while explaining a verse of Bhagavad Gita, Vyavasayatmika Buddhir Ekeha Kurinandana, Bhagavad Gita 241, points out that the order of the spiritual master is the life substance of the disciple. The disciple should not consider whether he's going back home, back to Godhead. His first business should be to execute the order of his spiritual master. Thus, a disciple should always meditate on the order of the spiritual master, and that is perfectional meditation. Not only should he meditate upon that order, but he should find out the means by which he can perfectly worship and execute it. Yaduktam padidrishtena girishena prasidata tadhyayanto japantascha pujayantascha samyata. When all the sons of Prachinabarhi left home to execute austerities, they met Lord Shiva, who, out of great mercy, instructed them about the absolute truth. All the sons of Prachinabharhi meditated upon the instructions, chanting and worshipping them with great care and attention. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastyacha Deshatarane Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Yeah, so this is very important verse, very important purport, very explicit and clear that the Prachetas, the sons of Prachinabharhi, 10 of them, they, after spending their early days at home, they then took up a way of life of devotional service, of Krishna consciousness. And that was the focus of their lives. That was what they were doing. They were not thinking about how to earn money and how to get material facilities and all that sort of thing, which is generally in the mind of the average person nowadays. But they left home to execute austerities. And somehow or other, by some transcendental arrangement, they happened to meet Lord Shiva. It's not really that they just happened to meet him, just somehow or other, by accident or something like that, but actually by the arrangement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they met Lord Shiva. And it's not specifically mentioned here, but by the arrangement of Lord Shiva himself, they met Lord Shiva. Or he went and found them and intervened in their lives, and then instructed them on, well, as the chapter title says, chanting the song sung by Lord Shiva. And we will actually read that song as this chapter goes on. It'll be presented over a number of verses what Lord Shiva said, and the particular prayers that he gave them. And as we'll see, they are all focused on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and very much so. Yes, because Lord Shiva himself, as is stated right at the end of the Bhagavatam, in the final chapter at least, it says there that Vaishnavanam Yata Shambhu, that Lord Shiva is the greatest Vaishnava or devotee of Lord Vishnu, very literally. Yes. And well, it was interesting. I had the experience this morning. I was online over there, and, with quite a number of people around. I'm not sure, maybe 100 or so were there online. And one person on TikTok asked, well, basically, what is the connection with Lord Shiva, or something along those lines. Obviously, he already had some sort of appreciation, you could say, attachment to Lord Shiva, so He was asking about that. Of course, nowadays people, they just don't really understand who is who and what is what when it comes to Vedic knowledge or just knowledge of the absolute truth. But anyway, at least he was interested. That's nice. So Lord Shiva, in his prayers, he glorifies the Supreme Personality of Godhead very beautifully in a very focused and concentrated way. And it's really clear from that Vaishnavanam Yata Shambhu, that he is actually a great devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's who he is, that's what he is. So anyway, then he met the Prachetas as described here. And out of his great mercy, he instructed them about the absolute truth means, about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. And then Lord Shiva, as Prabhupada says here, Lord Shiva actually became the spiritual master of the 10 sons, the Prachetas. And as his disciples, they took his words so seriously that simply by meditating on those instructions, they became perfect. And Prabhupada says here within the purport, this is the secret of success. So the spiritual master plays an integral, not just integral part, although it is certainly an integral part in the life of the disciple, but the spiritual master, the bona fide spiritual master, is essentially like the guiding light. There's that little saying there. He is not just like, but he is the guiding light in the life of the disciple. That whatever the disciple does is simply based on the instructions of the spiritual master. And this is just a vital, or even perhaps the most vital, part of the life of a devotee. And therefore we sing every morning. Shri Guru Charana Padma, Kevala Bhakati Sadma, Bando Mui Savadan Mate. Shri Radha Radhanath, Shri Giri Govardhan, Shri Caitanya Mahaprabhu Ki Jai. That the lotus feet of the spiritual master are the only way. Kevala. Kevala is a very standard Sanskrit term which is used in the Krishna conscious literatures repeatedly. Kevala means only. Only, just one. So yes, the lotus feet of the spiritual master are the only way to achieve pure devotional service. And therefore the author, Narottam Das Thakur, says, Kevala Bhakati Sadma Bando Mui Savadan Mate. And that Savadan, that word Savadan, is translated normally as we were reciting just a matter of 15 or 20 minutes ago, or whatever, half an hour ago, that this Savadan is translated there, that I therefore bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. However, which is okay. Actually, literally, the word Savadan, it's an interesting word, Sanskrit term, but it's also, like so many Sanskrit words, it has been adopted into current day North Indian languages, the languages of the people. Hindi, the main North Indian language, then Bengali, it's the same thing, Gujarati, and so on and so forth. There's a few other North Indian languages. And it's there, Savadan. Literally means watch out, beware, be very careful. In fact, if you can read it, then when you're moving around, if you're being driven around, like the Vrindavan area or like that, then you see, at least if you can read it, that when you come to some roadworks there on the roads, when you come to some roadworks, a little on the more substantial side, then there'll be a warning sign. And what does it say at the top of the sign? Savadan. You can read it, can't you? You can't read it. Anyway, yeah, that's what it says. The word is there, Savadan, and then some, other things about be careful and drive slowly or something like that. So it's interesting. That word, exact same word, Savadan, is adopted in these current day people's languages. And it means watch out, just be careful. And don't get distracted, don't space out and anything like that. So the same idea is there in that song, Bandhu Mui Savadan Mate. That be careful. In other words, don't think that there is another approach, that I will dodge somehow or other, skillfully try to dodge accepting a spiritual master. And when we say accepting, as Prabhupada's stating here very clearly, like really accepting as the focal point of one's life, the spiritual master and the instructions of the spiritual master. And as Prabhupada says here, meditating, the disciples took his words so seriously that simply by meditating on them, they became perfect. That this is the secret of success. So that's there. And you cannot really sidestep them or somehow or other dodge or make some other sort of, quote unquote, clever arrangement. So you're going to advance in Krishna consciousness. And interesting point, in Nectar of Devotion, of course, there's a number of chapters. It begins with chapter 6, and it goes on to chapter 14, if I remember correctly. Let me just check, yeah. Particularly chapter 13, but 14 also. The 64 devotional activities are listed first of all and then elaborated on and described through those several chapters. And they're listed out, first of all in the 6th chapter, just a list. And then chapter by chapter after that for some time, then the list is then given again, but now with explanations. So in the list, the first activity in devotional service is, do you know? Anyway, if you don't, maybe you can know it from now. First thing is accepting the shelter of the lotus feet of a bona fide spiritual master. Then second thing is, literally, in the Sanskrit, it's Guru Pad Ashraya. Guru is spiritual master, Pada, feet or lotus feet, Ashraya, taking shelter of the lotus feet of the bona fide spiritual master. And then the second one is becoming initiated by the spiritual master and learning how to discharge devotional service from him. So the two are sort of connected up there together. In other words, which the implication of which is that initiation is not just a formality. And, sometimes some devotees, at least in the past, have thought, and maybe some still do, that it's a bit like a status symbol, that when you are within the devotee community and moving around and interacting within the devotee community, then devotees will ask you, oh, what's your name? And if you say, well, my name is John, or something, then immediately they know, oh, you're not initiated. But if you say, well, my name actually is, whatever, Krishna Das or Radha Dasi or, like that, then immediately they know, oh, this is an initiated devotee. And there's immediately, you went up within their minds. You've gone up a step or something like that, and your mind said, oh, okay, you're actually an initiated devotee. Well, that's very good. And it is very good, but like we're saying, the second point, becoming initiated by the spiritual master and learning how to discharge devotional service from him, these two are one, actually. They're not two. Otherwise, if they were just simply two, the formality of being initiated, and then separately, then accepting, learning from the spiritual master. But being initiated means and necessarily includes learning how to discharge devotional service from the spiritual master. And then the third one is obeying the orders of the spiritual master with faith and devotion. So then, anyway, that's an interesting point. These three are there. They're the first three. Yeah, and then Prabhupada, this is now chapter 6 of Nectar of Devotion. You can just read through it yourselves. So, Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Prabhupada, they list out these three, but then they're part of a list of 10. So then there's the list of going to number 10, and after the list of the first 10, what is stated is that without following the above-mentioned 10 principles, one cannot properly elevate himself to the platform of sadhana bhakti or devotional service in practice. Means, sadhana bhakti means being a beginner. You cannot come to the stage of being a beginner. You're sort of, pre-beginner, something like that. If you don't follow the 10. Then they list out another 10, which are all negatives. Negatives. The first 10 are, you must do this, you must do that, you must do these 10 things. Then the second 10 are, you must not. And let me just mention a few. One should rigidly give up the company of non-devotees. Rigidly. Rigidly give up the company of non-devotees. So in other words, you must not associate with non-devotees. Then the second one of the second group of 10, one should not instruct a person who is not desirous of accepting devotional service? And then there's the rest. So that is 10 plus 10, 10 positive, 10 negative, that's 20. So there, where I just read, without following those principles, you can't really come to the platform of sadhana bhakti. So Prabhupada writes, altogether Srila Rupa Goswami mentions 20 items here, first of all, and all of them are very important. Out of the 20, the first 3, namely, accepting the shelter of a bona fide spiritual master, taking initiation from him, and serving him with respect and reverence are the most important. So anyway, there you go, devotees. That makes it pretty clear, doesn't it? It makes it very clear. Indeed, and these are all just essential, foundational points, and without following them, and particularly the first 3, then you won't really have a foundation in Krishna consciousness. You know, there's in the Bible, I don't know how many of you read you read the Bible, didn't you? Yeah. The story of the men, I think, one built his house on sand, wasn't it? The other one built his house on rock, and was there a third one or just the 2? I can't remember exactly, but definitely one of them built his house on sand. And what happened? House fell over. Yeah. And it was just, ruined. But the one who built the house on rock, that was there as sort of as permanently as houses can be. And, when I used to travel in Russia, we would see sometimes way out, even in still some of the cities a bit, but in some of the villages, the old houses built of logs. Because out there, they have, I don't know what the percentage is of the world's supply of pine trees, but I believe it may be, 50% of the pine trees on this planet, something like that. So they cut down those trees, the big ones, and then they built their houses without foundations. They just put the first logs on the ground. So it's kind of amusing. You drive around, you see these buildings. They've been there probably for well over 100 years, and quite a few of them, they're on an angle, because there's no foundation holding them, and some of them just fell over. So yeah, foundation is very important, and these 3 principles of accepting the spiritual master, being initiated, accepting the instructions, and then executing the orders, these are just foundational, and without them, then you're basically, your Krishna consciousness, you may have some Krishna consciousness, something, but it's not going to be strong. You're not going to be properly situated. It's not going to be solid and stable. It's going to be something else, just something shaky, and if you're not careful, it will actually fall to pieces in due course. And this is what happens to some people, devotees, you could say, in the broad sense. It definitely happens to them, and we see it happen. So this is all being emphasized very much here in this point by Srila Prabhupada. So, Prabhupada, we read the purport, of course. Prabhupada says, the disciple should unhesitatingly think about the instructions or orders of the spiritual master, and should not allow himself to be disturbed by anything else. And then Srila Prabhupada refers to a purport of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's, which, if I'm able to locate it, I can read to you and you'll get the idea pretty clearly if I can locate it. Let's just see if I can. Chapter 2, 241, yeah. Here, let's see if I can find it. But it's really, Prabhupada mentions basically what the idea is there. It's pretty clear, but still, to actually hear it is really, it's very powerful. Let's see again. Oops. We're trying here. If I can't find it, anyway, we'll just take what Prabhupada says because, that's basically good enough. So here, no, it's difficult, when you want to find something. Oh, here it is. Right, okay, here it is, devotees. Listen to this. The best kind of intelligence I can have is intelligence used in the service of Krishna. Intelligence is defined as fixed when it is intent upon my spiritual master's instructions. Intent meaning just focused like that. Well, fixed. When it is intent upon my spiritual master's instructions, such as chanting the name of Krishna, remembering his activities, and performing service to his lotus feet. My spiritual master's instructions are my sadhana and my life. My sadhana basically means, well, literally it means practice, like doing things, what I'm doing. And it means like the foundation of what I'm doing and my life, both in the beginning stages of bhakti as well as in bhakti's perfectional stage. I desire only to follow his instructions. I accept nothing else as my life's work, even in dreams. Whether I'm happy or distressed, whether the material world remains or is destroyed, I don't care. There is no loss for me. I simply must carry out the orders of my spiritual master. Fixedness upon his orders is determined intelligence and devotional service, and only by being fixed on his orders can such determined intelligence prosper. Anyway, that's the translation of, part actually, the part that Prabhupada is referring to, that part of the purport by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur on Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 41. And Prabhupada then says, having mentioned the Sanskrit, first two lines, Prabhupada says that this verse points out that the order of the spiritual master is the life substance of the disciple. The disciple should not consider whether he's going back home, back to Godhead. First business should be to execute the order of his spiritual master. Anyway, it's really quite a purport, this. It's really quite a purport. So foundational and so important for all of us. And Srila Prabhupada made the point again, repeatedly, that having been accepted by a spiritual master and being initiated and having been instructed, which doesn't have to mean like face to face, but it may do. Having been instructed maybe just, through classes and other instructions, then one should execute those orders. One should understand what the spiritual master wants you to do, and then one should do it. And the mood in doing it and carrying out those instructions should be one of gratitude. That what a gift, what gifts I've been given by the spiritual master. It's incalculable because it's Krishna. He's given me Krishna and he's given me access to Krishna and like this. So how can I calculate my debt? It is actually not possible, and therefore one should not feel that, I'll do this, I'll do that, and when I've done this and I've done that, then I will have fulfilled my debt. I will have repaid my debt, and that's it. Debt finished. Then what will I do? I'll do whatever I want to do. So, yes, so this mood of gratitude to the spiritual master and to Krishna and to the devotees for that matter, but particularly to the spiritual master, the debt of gratitude, the feeling that I'm indebted, and there's a great need for me to make the effort to try, even though it cannot really be done, but I must at least try to repay that debt of gratitude. This is a very essential part of the consciousness of the disciple. Yeah, like very fundamental, very foundational part of the state of mind, the way of thinking of the disciple. And not feelings, like we mentioned, that, I paid back my debt, and, maybe it's not such a big debt, but, I'll do something. In this way, one should actually dedicate one's life, and one should even think that life after life, I will continue trying to do that. I have a mission, like an eternal mission. So like this is very instructive for all of us, and we should apply ourselves, first of all, to really absorbing what is said here, and then really trying to apply it in our lives. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Any comments or questions? Jai Sachinandan Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Trying to link that verse with when Prabhupada was taking sannyas. Was he meditating on that verse? Or the purport of 241? Vyasyatmaka buddhir ekaha kuru nandana.
Well, Prabhupada would meditate on that, just repeatedly. I don't know if I read, did you? Reading that he was specifically at that time.
I had to some effect. I can't think
it
when
could
I
be.
It, yeah.
Well, I'm sure he was. Yeah. Although I don't know if I read that specifically he was thinking, okay, now here, like that. But certainly when he took sannyas, he, even before he took sannyas, when he was a householder, and he would travel around with his business, Prabhupada says, it's there in the Lilamrita, that he would, as he was traveling around, he would regularly read this, regularly read it, the particular verse and the particular purport. And, just like right here, he's mentioned it. In other places, he mentions it too. It was just like, it was really an essential part of his thinking and how he felt.
Yeah, we feel it personally in the purport of this verse, today's verse. Very personal realization, Prabhupada's, of his personal realizations of following the order of his spiritual master and getting success. Because he first met, I think in 1922, and he was given instruction, you preach in English language.
Right.
And it took him like 40 years to come to the West. So that chapter in the Lilamrita is called A Lifetime in Preparation. To achieve that, to meditate on that order.
He was meditating on the order.
Yeah. Seemed like a monumental task. Right?
Yes, seemed monumental. But he was always thinking how to do it. And eventually he did it based on that order. And in one of his Vyasa Puja offerings, which is oftentimes in the Vyasa Puja book, there's the offering. It's the offering in which he, you could say, chastises his godbrothers for not doing that. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So strangely skip my mind. Krishna also mentions in the Bhagavad Gita, the 13th chapter, 8 to 12, those verses, there's 20 items of knowledge, and one of the Acharya Pasanam, one has to accept a spiritual master.
Right, yes. Upasanam, upa-asana. You must situate yourself right with the spiritual master. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Loud and clear.
Hare Krishna. Shouldn't a person be absolutely sure when taking a spiritual master?
Okay. I mean, that's an important question. Well, are we capable of being absolutely sure of anything? But one should definitely be very, very sure. Really feel convinced. But having said that, one should know that, well, as we just read, it has to be done. If it's not done, then, you're basically not going to really be in much of a position in Krishna consciousness. So, not at all that one should think, right, spiritual master must get a spiritual master. Okay, so which one? Okay, there, let's go. Like that. Not like that. Which happens, or has happened, or happens. And it's similar mentality to, gosh, if I'm not initiated, they won't take me seriously. So I better get initiated. Then they'll accept me as being a real devotee as opposed to something else. So one has to bear in mind, be very mindful that actually I need to do this. And then look look and see and inquire and consider who could be, and then, and pray to Krishna. I understand this is very important, and you have said it yourself, Krishna. So please help me to make this decision in as proper a way as I'm capable of doing. Otherwise, if you have to be absolutely sure of anything in an actual absolute way, you won't do anything at all until you die. Yeah, and maybe a few moments before you die, you'll say, okay, right. I mean, it happens, actually, but one should definitely be very sure, as much as one can be, within reason, as a person, as a human being, as an aspiring devotee, and Krishna will help. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much for the class.
Loud and clear.
I have been thinking about, you could say, the shadow side of what this verse is speaking about. What some would call Mayavadism, or considering oneself to be the supreme. And in such a state of mind, could you kindly elaborate why this verse could be a warning against that kind of conception? What, in essence, why would having a spiritual master be the right thing to do, as opposed to considering oneself to be the supreme and therefore negating the need for a spiritual master? And I don't know if that comes across as clear.
Well, I think so, more or less. The first point is, I would say, if one considers oneself to be the supreme or to be God, then one is not very, you could say, observant of oneself. Because if you're observant enough of yourself and sort of analyze yourself enough, then it's almost like any fool, but let's not say any fool, but any sort of reasonably intelligent person will see that, my Lord, how on earth could I be God? I mean, look at me, little me. I get confused. I don't understand myself. Sometimes I do things, stupid things, and I think, well, how did I do that? Like this, there's so much evidence which a person who's, just a little observant of themselves will see that I am not qualified to be God at all. I mean, create something. To create a planet? How about creating, just a building or something small? It depends on the individual, but generally our abilities are very limited. Our power, for example, our intelligence, all these things are very limited. And then one sees, as happens with the great majority of people, is that they are struggling. Of course, a lot of people may not admit they're struggling, like rich people or powerful people. They may not admit they're struggling, or they may not see they're struggling. But generally, anyone with a bit of intelligence will see that actually I'm struggling in different ways, like health. Even, when you're young, it's one thing, but even when you're young, there's sickness and so on, you become incapacitated for some time. And what to speak of when you get old? You're just in a constant state of being in manifest diseases, actually. They just keep increasing and increasing. So one will see that actually I'm in difficulty. And then just like Arjuna in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, he found himself in distress, in great distress. Look at this situation on this battlefield. I meant to kill people who are my seniors, people who are dear to me, who are related to me. And, what on earth is this? So then he understood that actually I need guidance. So then he took shelter of Lord Krishna, or at least he began to at that point in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So, any person who doesn't think they need guidance in life they need guidance because, they just haven't got enough there to see the reality of their situation. And, when we say reality, it just means like a partial understanding of the reality of our situation. Because to completely comprehend it, it really does take deep insight to really understand what is my situation here. So therefore, someone who thinks they're God, you could say it depends what they mean when they say that they think they're God. But in sort of the classic sense, God is the creator, God is the supreme, God is controlling everything. In that sort of classical sense, we are far from that. Even if you're a really big person, like head of a country, every head of every country has been kicked out in due course. There's no exception. What to speak of dictatorships, but just even in democracies. Sooner or later, every single one gets kicked out, either by their own party feeling, your time's up, or just by the vote of the populace. So then to think one is God, it's just extreme foolishness, actually. So prayer is an important part of life and an important part of Krishna conscious life. Krishna, please help me to understand what I should do, what's best for me. And like that. Krishna, please help me to find help, someone who will actually work with me on an ongoing basis, sort of step by step, to take me through my conditioning and my faults and everything, and help me to actually better myself substantially. How does that sound?
It's. I think the I don't know if I was asking that or I was meditating on myself, but the one thing I've noted is the relational element. That if I consider myself to be the supreme, then there is no room for relationship. And in relationship, like this verse is saying, there is this dynamic of betterness, of becoming. That I, like you're saying, I can self-reflect and realize I am not the supreme, therefore I can engage in a relationship that betters me. But
Yeah.
if I'm considering that I am already the supreme, then there is no scope for relationship, and with no scope for relationship, there is no scope for betterment.
Well, that's true. But also, I mean, you would say that if you think you're the supreme, then there's no scope for relationship unless they're subservient to me. Then that's fine. You know, I can have many servants, but me serve someone else, forget it, because, you know, it's just beneath me because I'm so high. Yeah. But that's sort of typical material consciousness, like you see it even in a child. The child demands, I mean, small child, demands that the parents must do something or else. And they're just not going to, you know, cooperate until the parents do something which they feel, the child feels, should be done for them. Yeah, like this. So even a child, just an ordinary child, manifests a feeling like, you know, I am higher and I should be facilitated and, you know, I should be the center and you should make me your center and that's the right thing. Anyway, it's a big subject, but yeah, interesting point. Now, Mother Rukmini, do you have a comment or something? No, just Hare Krishna. Thank you. That's a good comment. Okay. All right. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada Ki.